Episode number 12 with opera star Morris Robinson. Welcome to The Art of Excellence, a show about people doing extraordinary things in their lives. I'm your host, Glenn Zweig. Thanks for joining me. My guest today is Morris Robinson. Morris is a world-renowned bass opera singer. He has regularly performed at the Metropolitan Opera, as well as opera houses all over the world. He is a highly regarded concert singer and has performed with many of the well-known symphony orchestras across the United States. He is a graduate of the Citadel and currently resides in Atlanta with his wife and son. Morris, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Let's go back to the beginning. You were born into a very musical family. As I understand it, both parents and your three sisters all sang, and so did you. Was it something you did willingly, or did you do a kicking and screaming?
Oh, I did a kicking and screaming. My mom was in the gospel choir at Israel Baptist Church here in Atlanta, in Kirkwood. My dad was in the choir and then on the deacon board and eventually became a minister, but he always sang. My sisters were really good gospel singers. I was the one in the house that didn't want to sing. I played instruments. I was a natural musician, so I could pick up any instrument and make a good account for myself. But the drums were the thing I loved the most, and I played the drums. So they would do all the choir concerts and sing, and I'd be the drummer. I was not wanting at all to be a singer. In fact, I didn't start singing until I got to Northside High School. And my mother made me audition for the chorus because I wanted to just be, I wanted to play in a band. When I auditioned for the chorus, Billy Dinsmore, the guy that ran the program there, allowed me to take one period of band and one period of chorus because he thought I was equally good at both.
We're talking high school now.
We're talking high school now. I went through the church thing and all, growing up, I sang in the church. I sang in the Atlanta Boy Choir when I was 7 years old. I didn't like that either. I just did not want to be a singer. Growing up in the South and being a big guy from Southwest Atlanta near Ben Hill Recreation Center, you don't want to be singing in the choir. You want to be out banging heads with guys, be one of the tough guys. I wanted that for myself more so than being the choir boy. But I had a natural affinity for music. Athletics I had to work really hard at. But when I got to high school finally...
Before we get to high school, though, just to finish up the childhood, so this wasn't an option. Your parents said, look, you're gonna sing or you're going to play an instrument. This is part of what you're going to do being in our house.
Pretty much. I mean, it wasn't thrust upon me. I had a natural interest in music, but singing was something I didn't want to do. My grandfather was a minister also, and we would travel to his churches. He had one in Toccoa, Georgia, and one in Washington, Georgia. And every time we went to church with him, he'd make us all get up and sing a song. Unrehearsed, unannounced, unprepared, just get up and sing. So we had to do like a quartet. My little sisters, I think, were probably 3 or 4 the first time they did it, and I was 3 years old. So I'm 7, 8 years old, and we're in front of the church entertaining, doing. So it was just part of the culture, part of my upbringing, that we were made to do these things. It was just... I enjoyed music, but I did not like singing at all. I like playing instruments.
Okay, so let's fast forward to high school now. You were in the Performing Arts School, and Northside, I should mention, which is where I went, was one of the best, if not the best, performing arts program in the country. Very unusual. You were both singing and you were in the band.
Yes.
And usually you go one or the other, and you were in both. Now, here's the interesting part. You were also on the football team. At the time, did you identify more with being a performance artist or with being an athlete?
Well, at the age of 14, when I got there at 9th grade, I didn't have an identity. I played 8th grade football at Sutton Middle School, and then I got to Northside and auditioned for the band, made the band, and my mother made me audition for the chorus, and Billy Dinsmore allowed me to do one of each. But when I got to the first football game, and I was in the marching band, I realized that all the cool guys are out there on the football field, and I was a band nerd. I had the hat on, I had the baritone horn, the white shoes, and I was out there marching, and I was thinking, this is not what I want for my life. So as soon as spring ball rolled around, I exited the band. I told the band director I was leaving. I joined chorus full-time so I could play football, and he was not happy about that because I just made first chair all-city band. Because I was a pretty talented musician, but I didn't want that. I wanted to go out and play football. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to prove to myself I was a tough guy. I wanted to be part of that group, and that became the dichotomy of my existence. I was really good at singing, but I was also one of the tough guys on the football team. And I think One justifies the other, I think. More so, football, in retrospect, gave me the right to be a singer because I was able to do this with all the tough guys. I was able to express myself artistically without much pushback.
I don't want to play armchair psychologist here, but you were trying to prove you could play ball to yourself or prove it to others?
Both. When you grow up like I did, upper middle class, Southwest Atlanta, but we went to school at Sarah Smith and Sutton and Northside, I didn't really have a lot of common time, playtime, recreational time with the guys that I grew up with or the guys near where I grew up with. Those guys were spending time at Ben Hill Recreational Center, so they all knew each other. And I was always ostracized, looked at as, the nerdy guy, the one that talked funny, the one that went to those other schools. And you want to be respected and accepted by your peers universally. I went to school here in Decatur. Church here in Decatur. So, those guys thought I talked funny. I went to those funny schools on the north side of town. I lived in the suburbs, and the only way I could really prove myself was to show them I was just as tough as they were. And the only way to legally do that was to go out and compete on the field. So to me, it was like I had to prove to them, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it as well. The music thing came naturally. They all knew I played drums at church. They all knew I was in the choir. They all knew that part, which added to the nerdness of me. But being able to do the other part where no one could deny your abilities really was important to me.
And just to provide a visual, since this is an audio podcast, so people can understand how truly intimidating you were in the field, what was your size back then, height and weight?
Well, I was a little guy. At Northside, I walked into my senior year 6'3", 245. Right after I graduated, I gained 20 pounds of muscle. I walked into college at 6'3", 265, and I graduated at 287. So I'm a big boy.
Right.
But
right.
You don't want to be the big soft boy singing, so you got to make amends for those things.
So let's talk about the Citadel. You ended playing football there. You were a 3-time All-American. And if there's any irony, it's this, which is when you were looking to graduate and move on potentially to play pro ball, you were deemed too small. At 6'3", 290 pounds, too small to make it as a professional. It's pretty insane. Were you truly hoping to make it as a pro? Was playing in the NFL a longtime dream of yours?
It was a distant dream. I was not unrealistic. If I were D1A material, I would have been at Notre Dame or Michigan or Georgia Tech. Those schools weren't coming for me. I was on the smaller side for a lineman. NFL teams weren't really checking for guys my size. When I was coming out, there were guys 315, 320 all over the place, 6'6". And I was playing against them. But, there's a cutoff. And I think that, some people walk away from sports, but football is the one sport, no matter how good you are in college, it'll walk away from you because you have to meet certain criteria. And I just didn't meet it. It was tough to do. It was tough to live with. It was a tough deal.
I want to talk about how you recover from something like that. But before we get to that, when you were looking at colleges, and I know Citadel gave you a full ride, but at the same time, several other colleges were offering you scholarships to study music. And of course, you turned them all down. Obviously, you had a special talent. You had a special gift with your voice. Did you not consider singing at all at the time, even knowing that football was a real stretch for you?
Never once. I had Eastman School of Music. They recruited heavily out of my school. Cincinnati Conservatory. I had a family, the Woodwards, who actually were doing scholarships out of the North Side. If you decide to major in music, they would pay your way through school. So they had offered me one of those grants, and I got accepted to Cincinnati Conservatory. I could have gone to Eastman. Morehouse School of Music offered me a full ride to come there, and I chose not to take either of them. I wanted to play football. And I don't know. I guess at the time it was just more about I felt as though I could always sing. I always had this natural ability, but you only get so many years to go out and play sports. And I really wanted to. I had to work really, really hard to be an athlete. I was naturally gifted physically, but I was not a natural athlete. I had to work really hard to be an athlete. I didn't have to work really hard to be a musician, so I thought this would never leave me.
So when you got to the point at the end of your ride at Citadel, when you realized that playing pro ball wasn't in the cards, there'd be no professional football career, maybe it was a pipe dream to some extent. It was still something that you held out for. When it finally, that door was shut for good, how do you recover from that? What was that like?
Hardest thing ever. I have moments now, and I'm 48 years old, because, you spend your life working really hard at something and trying your best to be good at it. You get the recognition in college that I got. I became a starter. I made 3 All-American teams. I made all conference. I was really good at what I did. And then I was told, that's it. That's the end of the road. You know, one of the stories I always tell is my first time going to a football game as a spectator was my first year working at 3M. It was a preseason game, and they gave me tickets. I was in marketing. I got tickets to the 3M booth. And I took this girl on a date, and I wanted to go, to the booth, have a good time. And I walked in there with, picked up some popcorn and hot dog and realized it was my first time ever being a spectator at a football game where I was not actually participating. And I couldn't take it. Like, I literally had tears coming out of my eyes. She thought I was weird, but it was a bitter pill to swallow. And for years, I couldn't watch the opening college football game every year. I couldn't watch it because I felt like I got cheated. I felt like my whole identity, because, you spend your life establishing your identity as a kid. I was the jock. I was the guy that could play football. And I couldn't do it anymore. And it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. It takes a long time to get over it psychologically. So, yeah, it was tough. How did I do it? Immersed myself in my work, tried to just face the fact that that's where it was. All my friends that I made friends with afterwards were all football players, all ex-football players, so we were kind of each other's therapy. I joined the flag football league in Northern Virginia. We won our league. We went to the Nationals, so I was still feeding that competitive edge. Played a lot of basketball, just kept myself in shape then. But yeah, it's a very, very bitter transition. Thousands of guys have to go through it because only a very small percentage make the pros, but it was tough. It was a tough deal.
Your father was a minister?
Yeah, my dad's a Baptist minister. He also retired from Lockheed Martin. He was one of those guys that worked full-time and was a minister also. He pastored several churches in, the greater Atlanta area. He would work all week and go do the church thing on the weekends.
So did you grow up in a somewhat religious household? And if so, is there a part of this football journey that you said, well, maybe somehow this is God's will that I'm not meant to be a football player?
Well, you always can find solace in religion and justification for circumstances. And yeah, I grew up in a very religious household. My dad's a minister. My mom was probably the most religious of all of us. She was a church lady and a very prominent member of the Ministers' Wives of Atlanta group. And her dad was a Baptist minister. So yeah, we grew up in church. We did all the after church things. We were always in church. So that added to my ability to, I think, cope, with the circumstances and say that this is God's plan. This is my lot in life. And maybe there's something greater for me. And I had no idea it would end up being what it is, but I certainly knew that my life wasn't going to end at that point. I carried on forward with at that point, I was working for 3M, got a job right out of college, and did corporate America for a while. I still sang on the weekends. I still sang at teammates' weddings. I still sang the national anthem at football games and stuff like that. But I never, ever dreamt that this would take off and become my livelihood.
So when you went to corporate America, and it's another point of reflection, where are you and where do you want to go? Once again, high school, music was there, but you pushed it aside, going to college. Now college is over. Pro ball is not going to happen. Did you once again think about music, or you just never thought that could actually be a viable career at this point?
Never thought it could be a viable career at this point. Like I said, the only thing I did musically at that time was sing at weddings. I sang the Lord's Prayer quite a bit. I sang national anthem at football games, and that was it. I was at the time, even working for 3M, I was thinking, because I had a degree in English, I was going to go to law school. So I was thinking, I'll work here for a few years, and then I'll go back to law school. They'll pick up the tab. I'll get a law degree, and I'll go back and practice law. And that's when I was in D.C., and Denise, my wife, actually set up an audition with me for the Choral Arts Society of Washington without me knowing. And woke up one Saturday morning, and she's like, oh, you have an audition at 1 o'clock, so I hope you're ready for it. I said, audition to do what? So I went to the music store, bought a score of the Mozart Requiem, which is a piece I did at Northside with Billy Dinsmore my junior year. It's the only thing I knew. And so I went back, took that music in audition. I sang for Norman Scribner, who was the director of the Choral Arts Society, and he heard my voice, and he completely freaked out. He's just like freaked out. He said, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I'm in sales, and, I came to audition for your chorus. He's like, I don't have a voice like yours in my chorus, but since I think you need to be in music, I'm going to take you in anyway. But he immediately started the Dog and Pony Show. I was singing at the Congressional Black Caucus. I was singing at all these things, singing the national anthem. He was taking me all over D.C., just, like, look at what I found. So once someone of that magnitude, of that level of artistry and recognition takes an interest in you and has the reaction that he had, I felt like maybe I'm onto something here. So that kind of whet my appetite.
But let's look at the timing of when this happened. You were 7 years, I believe, in your corporate career, working at 3M in sales. I'm assuming by this time you're pulling in some pretty sizable commission checks. You've got a nice expense account, the company car, other benefits. You've essentially made it. So what was the problem? What was the problem with being a corporate salesperson? What was missing from it?
Anyone can do that. I felt like I was doing something that anyone else could do, and I didn't think I was put on this planet to do that. I knew I was talented. I knew that music was something I did better than most people. I just didn't have the credentials to justify such. I could hear people do things and think, I could do that way better than that. But I didn't have anything that justified me being able to even have that standpoint, that point of reference. And I felt like I'd left 3M actually and started working for a division of Exxon. And this job, the sales cycle was like 18 months long. There was no instantaneous gratification, lots of grinding. And I was frustrated with it. And I don't know, I think that I didn't go into this music thing looking at this as being a viable alternative. I went into it because I needed some excitement in my life. I wanted to explore what I used to do in high school and auditioned for a weekend program at the New England Conservatory then, singing the national anthem for them. And they said, hey, you should be in an opera studio. And that's kind of where things really started happening. I was up in New England, auditioned for them. I got into a musical in Salem, Massachusetts to sing the role of the devil in Citadel by Michael Balfe. It felt good. I was working in corporate America, making sales calls, company car, expense account, all that stuff during the week. And on the weekends, I was rehearsing. And I was like, I feel like I'm back at Northside again. I feel like I'm back in tour show. I feel like this is the other side of me that people don't know exists, and it was fun.
If you look back, was there any particular aha moment when you were working in sales where you just woke up one day and you just said, enough of this? Or was it just this feeling that had been gnawing at you year over year over year until finally you just had enough?
It was neither. It was, I'm working in corporate America. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm frustrated, but this is all I have. And then this opportunity to do the opera thing on the weekends, to do a musical presented itself. I started doing that. And I felt balance in my life. I felt like, okay, I'm doing this part of my life that sucks. Like literally at about 5 or 6 o'clock on Sunday, my stomach would start hurting because I had to go back to work on Monday. But during the weekends, I was rehearsing, and I was going to the New England Conservatory, and I was going to a rehearsal hall and rehearsing this Citadel thing, and I was excited about it. It made me feel good. It made me feel like I'm finally tapping into this resource of talent that I knew that I had that was just laying dormant all these years. And I was excited about the opening. I was excited about doing it. But the moment it really clicked was I walked into the back of the theater for opening night. And my first lines, I think, were, "What daring mortal has defiled my name?" or something like that. And the director of Boston University Music was there. The chorus master from Boston Lyric Opera was there. And I think it was Steve Steiner, the chorus master from Boston Lyric, said, "Oh, my God." You could hear him say that after I got done with my first line. He said, "Oh, my God." And I was like, okay, I might be onto something. And immediately after the show, they all walked up to me and said, we don't hear this often off the street. If you're really serious about this and you want to be a singer, we really think you have a shot at doing so. And that was kind of the ignition I needed to.
That was the pivotal moment.
That was it, yeah.
So you're getting all this positive feedback. And at some point, you decide to go for it and you quit your job and you go pursue this thing full time. Was there ever a plan B? Was there ever something else to fall back on if opera didn't work out? Was it going back into sales or was there something else?
Well, in retrospect, opera was the plan B. Before I made this move, I talked to Denise, I talked to my dad, I talked to my mom, I talked to everyone, I talked to my friends, all my frat brothers, former teammates. Am I crazy for trying this? But I knew in my heart that if I made this sacrifice, I was going to do everything I could. People made me promises, not guarantees, but basically said, if you do X, Y, and Z, we can guarantee that you will have a career at this. I didn't know what that really meant, but I knew that I was going to do X, Y, and Z. I knew that I was gambling on myself. Got a job at Best Buy, loading boxes in the morning from 6 to 10. Started school at 1 o'clock, went from 1 to 6, repeat, And that was the plan, to do that for 2 years. And if this didn't work, I can go back and find another job. I was still young. I was 30. If it didn't work for 2 years, I'd be 32. I still had a wealth of experience. I'd worked for 3M. I'd worked for a division of Exxon. I had all this territory sales management. I could do it. But I never had to look back. Almost instantaneously, the opportunities in opera got so became so superfluous that I almost had to quit my job at Best Buy in order to manage all my opera opportunities, So it turned out to be almost instantaneous. And I always look at it this way because I came from a religious household. It was God's way of saying, see, you're doing the right thing, stay with it. And I've never worked a day in my life since.
Amazing.
Now, it was a journey. I didn't go from the salary I was making to a commensurate salary. I went from the salary I was making to, doing a gig here, being in school full time, getting a stipend, working a summer job. But, everything, there was always enough money to make it work. And then it just took off.
I can't even start to fathom the work entailed with training for the opera. There's not just the vocal training, but you're an actor too, so you need to understand stage presence, conveying the right emotion, interacting with other singers on stage. Not to mention the fact that most of these operas are in foreign languages, Italian and German. It just feels really daunting. Walk us through some of the steps that it takes to become a professional opera singer.
Oh, God. Well, I liken it to drinking water out of a fire hydrant. There's so much coming at you. The crazy part about the opera world, and this is where the military academy comes in, the one thing that is really interesting is you hear about how great your voice is right up until you start studying opera and trying to be an opera singer. Then all of a sudden, your voice is great, but your languages suck. You have no stage presence. You don't know what stage right is. You don't know what stage left is. You have never sung in German. You've never sung in Latin. Never sung in... It's everything. You hear about all the things that you really suck at. If you don't have the mental toughness to decipher through that instantaneous feedback and turn it into a positive, you will crack under pressure. Because not only that, you have to think about all the things that you're learning that you don't know really well, but your voice is such that it's capitulated you into positions that you don't deserve to be in. Like, I should not have been singing The King at Boston Lyric Opera 3 weeks after I started studying opera. So I had to learn what I was singing in Italian, learn about phrasing, learn about diction, learn about legato, learn about all these things I never learned before, but my voice sounded good doing it.
I read that you went to Italy to study Italian. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. That was a few years later. After I got into the Metropolitan Opera, I got there. My Italian was so bad, they said, you know what? We're going to send you to Italy for the summer. We're going to pick up the tab on it. And I did one of those total immersion courses where I stayed with the family, had 3 meals a day with them, had 3 lessons with them per day. And I stayed there all summer in Florence and studied Italian. And then 2 years later, I did the same thing in Germany.
Despite your amazing voice, you really had to go back to school. I mean, you're learning an entirely new craft at the age of 30.
There was a booster, a donor in Boston said it's almost like taking up brain surgery. Like the amount of minutia and details that one must master and the amount of information you must collect and turn over is almost incomprehensible to the layman. I mean, it was incomprehensible to me. I just thought you go out and sing loud. No, there's so much more to it. And I was learning on the fly, but I think because I came from the Citadel, because I had the musical training at Northside, because I was an athlete, I knew how to discipline myself, work hard, take in information, and produce. Football coaches aren't nice in how they communicate information to you. You miss a block, it's not, okay, Morris, you missed this block. Next time, see if you can do better. It's get your ass out there and do it right now. And it's instantaneous reinforcement, but it's instantaneous production.
So you feel like the football actually helped prepare you for the training
Absolutely.
for opera?
Not 100%. In so much as the discipline, in so much as the amount of work, to be an athlete, you have to sacrifice a lot of things and keep your body in shape. You have to learn a playbook. You have to perform under pressure. And that pressure is screaming fans, coaches behind you yelling, some 300-pound guy in front of you knocking the crap out of you. You have to sift through all of that and produce. Same thing in opera world. Even at the level that I'm at now. Every time I open my mouth, everyone listens. Opera News is there. The New York Times is there. The LA Times is there. The Chicago Tribune is there. The Dallas Morning News is there. The Miami Herald is there. USA Today is there. The Financial Times. These people are all listening to you. Opera News. And they're general directors and casting agents and people from all over the place because I sing at these venues now. My last gig was at the New York Philharmonic. Everybody and their mother were there. They were all there, and they heard me singing in German. And I got to go out, and I have to sound like I'm from Germany, and I got to be on pitch, and I got to sound good, and I'm on stage with an all-star cast, and I got to fit in, if not try to outshine, just because I want to maintain my level of stability in this marketplace.
Was there any point, though, during the training when you said, you know what, my God, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. This is way more work, way more time. Did you ever think about quitting? Did you ever give pause to what you're doing?
That's not how I'm made, man. See, I thought the opposite. I thought if this guy can do it, then I know I can do it. If you can do it, I can do it, and I can do it better. I was always made that way. And it's not because, some people will they think I'm a competitive jerk and I'm conceited and all those things. I think it's just a natural desire to be good, to be better, to maximize my effort.
Where does that come from? Is that just self-driven? Did that come from your upbringing?
I think it's self-driven, but I also think that, it's self-driven because, when I was a kid playing the drums at church or whatever it is I did, I was always quiet about it until I got an opportunity to go and do it. But I always felt like I could do a better job than someone else. But it's also, being an athlete. It's also coming from the Citadel. See, those things fueled what I already had in me. So, I never once thought that this is too much, it's insurmountable. I just thought I had to work harder. I knew that I could get this right if I worked harder. And that's what I did.
If you can think back to the very first opera you performed, you went through all this training, all this work, took this big gamble. When you finished that last note of whatever solo you had and the applause kicked in, what was that feeling like? Do you remember?
I remember it like it was yesterday because it was the Boston Lyric Opera. I was singing The King and Aida. And I just got through singing that exact same role at the Metropolitan Opera in March of this year. I remember standing on stage because the king walks out, has this long fanfare of trumpets and introductions. And I was standing there holding my props in my hand thinking, what in the heck am I doing up here? Like, I could not believe. I saw people out there with tuxedos on and there were limos out front and people wearing fur coats. And I was like, I can't believe I'm on stage doing this. Like, I just couldn't believe it. But when I got done, I got locked into the mode and I just did what I do in rehearsal every day. And when it was over with and I got the applause and, I took my curtain call. It was my debut, my professional debut. And I heard the applause and I saw the people's reaction. I was like, you know what? I got this. I can do this. I can do this. And I'm getting excited now because I think about how I felt like this is the confirmation I need. And you hear all the critics and the coaches and the conductors that yell at you and tell you all the things you do wrong. But that reaction I got that night was like all the confirmation I needed to push forward. So I've never looked back. I've never looked and said, you know what? This sucks. I'm not good at this. I looked at what the next step is because, you can't sing forever. And I do have a life that I have to maintain and I have a kid that has to go to college and that kind of thing. But, if I can stay where I am right now and maintain this level of productivity for the next 10, 15 years, I think I'll be set.
Can you belt out a little something? Give us 10 seconds of something.
I knew you were going to say something like that, man. I don't know what to say.
My audience is going to kill me if I don't ask. Give me something. 10 seconds. You can go longer if you want.
I'll give you 10 seconds. Pregam Maria, Is that enough?
That's incredible. What was that from that you just did?
That was the last lines of Il Lacerdato Spirito from Verdi's Simon Boccanegra. So, yeah.
That was going to be my guess.
Is that what you were saying?
Early in your career, you were offered multiple times the role of Porgy in Porgy and Bess.
Yes.
Which you repeatedly turned down. I should mention, for those that aren't familiar with it, Porgy and Bess is an American opera, I believe, composed by Gershwin, whose leading character, Porgy, is a disabled black street beggar in Charleston. So did you turn it down because you didn't want to play to the stereotype? And were you ever tempted to just take it, despite the risk of being typecast, just so you have income coming in and you know that you can live to see another day, another performance?
The answer is no. I never took it. I never ever intended on taking that role. First of all, it was written for a bass baritone, a higher voice in mind. So I always thought it was too high for me. Secondly, because I came into the opera world without all the pedigree and the training of a conservatory, and I knew I had a lot of catching up to do, and I was behind the 8 ball with languages and styles and stuff like that, I never wanted to take the easy way out and do something like this and then get stuck doing that because all the other stuff wasn't good enough. I wanted to make sure that I was good enough to firmly plant myself in Italian and German repertoire at 8 houses. And that's what I did for the first several years of my career. And it wasn't until last year, on a whim, I don't even know where it came from, but one of the most prestigious opera houses in the world, La Scala, asked me to come sing Porgy. To a lot of people's idea, a lot of people thought it was the worst thing I could do. Not because I wasn't established, but because they just didn't think I had it in me to sing this role. It's huge. It's as big as any Wagner role. It's high, it's low, and it's very, very long. And I took that as a challenge. First of all, if I was ever going to justify having done it, it would be La Scala would be the justification for doing so. And I felt like I'd established myself enough in my career at this point where I should take on something like this without risk. I have contracts for German and Italian roles for the next 2-3 years out at the time, and I was all set with that. So I felt like, why not? Why not add this? I had just recently taken on Joe from Showboat, who sings the famous aria Old Man River. And that was my first, quote, black role, so to speak, other than Osmin Abduction from Seraglio, but that's different because that's in German and it was written by Mozart. But he's a black character too. But it's standard repertoire. When I did the Old Man River, it was a risk then, but I'd already established myself again as a German and Italian singer. So it was just added to my repertoire. And I enjoyed tremendous success with that role. And I felt like it was time to take on Porgy. I felt like I was vocally ready. I felt like I had all the technical things that I needed to do so. And I was getting a chance to sing at La Scala. Like, that doesn't happen often. That is the preeminent opera house in Italy, in Europe. And I was able to do it, and it went really well. I was very excited about it. It's a tremendous opportunity, and I think I knocked it out of the park.
You're studying contrast, a once intimidating, powerful force to be reckoned with in the football field. And now this sophisticated opera star belting out Mozart in foreign languages. I mean, how do you reconcile these two very different or seemingly different personas?
I don't know. I think I enjoy it, and I enjoy reveling in it more so than anything. I think that, you see me. I've come to do this interview with you, and I have on flip-flops, polo t-shirt, sweatpants, driving a Hummer with a bald head and a beard. Scruffy beard at that. No one on the planet would ever think that I'm the guy that goes down to Symphony Hall and sings Verdi from appearance. And I like that. I like the dichotomy of my existence. I think it's always been me, all the way back to when I was in the Atlanta Boy Choir and wanting to play football, all the way back when I was at Northside High School and during tour show and captain of the football team. I've always had this, when I was at Citadel, I was a founder of the gospel choir, but I was also on the football team. So I always had these two lives, and I think that I enjoy it. I don't try to reconcile it because that's just me. That is who I am. But the similarities between the worlds, I think, are more so than people would ever imagine. The amount of discipline it takes, your body is your instrument, your body is your tool when you're playing ball. The intestinal fortitude, the hard work, the work ethic, I like to call it assiduousness, aptitude, all those things are they're present in both worlds. But the whole intimidating guy, I'm just a big, nice guy. I don't knock people out anymore. I did used to bounce at the club on Old National before I worked for 3M, so that's part of me too. But I just, I can't knock people out and sing opera anymore, can I?
I can't exactly picture Pavarotti on a football field knocking down 300-pound.
I don't think he was mean enough. He played the romantic tenor, so he's a nice guy. The other part is, Glenn, is that because I'm a bass, I get to pretty much play badass, sometimes. Or I get to play God, or a father, or a priest, or devil, or assassin, or killer. I get to play all these roles that kind of fit my persona, so it kind of works for me.
For people that hear your voice for the first time, I'm sure a natural response would be something to the effect of, well, that Morris, he's just blessed with a beautiful voice. He got lucky. Do you think it's just about luck, or is there a lot more to it?
Well, there are lots of people that have great voices that can't be voiceover artists. There are lots of people that have great voices that can't be opera singers. There are lots of people that have great voices that have gone to conservatory for years and studied and can't be opera singers. It's not just luck. It is luck that I was found, but I think more so it was God's path. It was pre-written. It was already decided. I just wasn't on board. If you think that you have a great voice and you could just walk into the Metropolitan Opera and start singing, you're wrong. Like I said before, the amount that one has to learn and sift through and make the application of, it's almost incomprehensible. And I'm not bragging that I'm some genius, but I had the aptitude and the work ethic to pull it off, but it is not easy. And it's not just because I have a great voice. It's because of a lot of hard work and a lot of stars aligning and a plan that I was unaware of that God had in place and I followed. That's it.
So how do you judge success? I mean, here you are, you're singing opera in front of thousands of people all over the world. Is that success, or is there something more that you're striving for?
You know, I have an 11-year-old son. He's heard this story probably to the point where he can never hear it again and be happy. But when I'm dead and gone, he'll be able to read these things, and my grandkids will be able to read these things and realize that I had an opportunity to do something special and do something different. And I took the risk, and I capitalized upon the opportunity and worked really hard to bring it to fruition, and that's success. And that, to me, is more important than the money I make, the house, cars, clothing, all that. It's way more important than that. Is being able to look myself in the mirror in the morning and say, you know what? I did the best I could, and it came to fruition. It paid off. That's success.
You're an African-American opera singer in a world where I have to imagine the vast majority of the audiences are still white.
Yep.
Did that disparity in any way affect your decision to pursue this profession?
No, I'm used to it. It's a microcosm of the real world. You know, when I went to work for 3M in Minnesota, the vast majority of people there were white. You know, when I get on the airplane to fly to any place, from the pilots to the flight attendants to all the passengers. So I'm used to that. When I worked in sales up in New England, I was in New England. I was calling on places in Vermont and Connecticut and New Hampshire. So that didn't discourage me. I had an old sales manager from 3M, and he and I are still buddies. He said, Morris, because I was running into some problems in Richmond with an account I had. He says, you go in there and you show them that you can make them money and you can help them grow their business. I promise you, they won't care if you're orange. Just go do it. And I thought in a perfect world, he's probably right. But I never forgot that. And so when I go on stage, it's obvious what I am. You know, they can see that. But when I open my mouth, I want them to realize that there is no shortage. There are no liabilities. And I just go for it, do the best I can. Anything else is out of my control.
So you don't feel in any way that you carry a burden of diversifying the audience, making it more multicultural?
I never said that.
Do you feel that to some degree?
I absolutely do. I didn't let it discourage me from pursuing the career, but I do realize that the better I do, the more visible I am, and the more excellent I am, the less sacrificing of the quality that one perceives, the better the product, the more likelihood that the opportunity will be presented to other people that look like me. And there's a nice size contingency of black singers on the opera world scene right now. A lot of them live right here in Atlanta. You know, I think it's our job to go out and make sure we present excellence such that, A, the people coming behind us have opportunities, and B, the people in the audience accept that diversity, look past it, and just look at the quality of the work that we do. And I think it's a huge responsibility. It's a challenge that I have, and I try to make sure I make good on that every time.
So what's the typical day in the life of Morris Robinson? When you're not on the road and you're not performing, are your days carefree? Is there a lot of work and training and practice? Walk us through what happens.
Well, it's funny you would ask that, because right now, when I got done with the New York Philharmonic gig, I came home on the 7th of June, and I haven't sung a note except for what I just sang for you. I haven't practiced a note. I haven't done anything because I needed that time off. This past season was the busiest season I've had. So my normal days then consist of waking up, trying to eat the right thing, trying not to drink too much coffee and caffeine so I don't affect my reflux, go to rehearsals, do the best I can there, come home, study for the next role, do a lot of emails, answer this, do an interview for this article, do a photo shoot for this thing, you know, try to get some sleep and repeat. That's been my life since the beginning of September of 2016 until this past June 7th. So my typical day now is I got a new puppy, making sure Miles walks the puppy, making sure he's empty before he comes in the house, you know, running around with my nieces, running errands, you know, just doing things around the house and just kind of keeping myself busy with the things I don't get to do because I'm on the road so much. So, yeah, my typical days right now are pretty much non-productive, and I'm happy with that. But it cranks back up in a few weeks. I go to a Boston Symphony Orchestra to do Das Rheingold, and about a week before that, I'm going to start zeroing in. I'll start back studying. I'll go to New York a couple of times, take some voice lessons. I'll be geared up and ready to go. Because, again, all eyes on me. You know, the lights are on. it's time to snap the ball and run the play. I'll be ready.
Who's been your greatest inspiration?
My greatest inspiration? That's a tough question. I mean, I have so many people that I look up to in this business that have gone before me. I'm always compared to Paul Robeson, who was an African-American base scholar, athlete. I wasn't a scholar, but I was an athlete. But he never got a chance to do what I do. Not operatically, not sing at the Metropolitan Opera, not sing at La Scala, not sing because he was black and it was the 1920s. It wasn't because he wasn't good enough. It wasn't because he didn't have the voice, the facility. He didn't have the opportunity. He wasn't presented with it. He was very famous. He did lots of concerts, but he never got a chance to do what I do. And I feel like, you know, how sometimes you feel like you're doing it for this guy. I feel like I'm able to do the things that he wasn't able to do, and I want to make sure that I do as well as I thought he would have done with it, you know, and handle it responsibly. So that's always inspiring me to know that there are lots of people that came before me that didn't get a chance to do what I do. And I don't want people to think that because I came into this world in a non-traditional sense that I take things for granted, because I don't. I work really hard at what I do, and I take a lot of pride in it. And I'm inspired by the people that didn't get a chance to do it. I'm also inspired by the people that look up to me that want to do it, because the burden is there to produce. You know, I'm inspired also because I'm a father, and I'm an uncle, and I'm a godfather. And I want my kid and those kids to realize that, you know, we don't have to take a traditional path anymore to earning a living, to expressing oneself musically, to doing anything. If you have a dream, you have a goal, you have the right to go after it. Don't settle. Don't allow fear disguised as practicality to force you into doing something normal. And in the African-American community, especially when I grew up, we didn't have very many examples of that, because the goal was to get out of school if you could go and get a good job and take care of your family. Well, yeah, I got that, and I had that as a formula, but I chose to go off that path. And I've been very successful at doing so. And I want them to know they have the right to do so as well. You have the ability. Don't be afraid to dream and branch out.
You recently gave the commencement address at the Citadel.
Yes.
What was the primary message?
The primary message was you're ready. You're prepared. And no matter what life forces you into or presents you with, because you're able to go through this institution and go through the regimented society here and make it from the same gates to the graduation seats to walking across the stage. Because of that, you can do anything. And I use my story as a parallel to say that, you know, I came from the same background that they came from, and I'm doing things that no one ever dreamt possible. Because at the Citadel, we don't even have a music program. You know, we don't have any of those things that prepare you for what I'm doing, but I was prepared for it because I attended the school and went through the system, and I wanted them to leave empowered with the comfort in knowing that no matter what it is that they want to do or what life presents them with, they'll be able to conquer because they have the training, they have the intestinal fortitude, they have the discipline, they have the aptitude to do it.
So if you could go back in time and look out in that audience and see that freshly minted Citadel cadet Morris Robinson sitting out there, you know, knowing everything you know today, what advice do you give yourself?
Oh, wow. If I knew now what I know and I saw me then about to take the same path.
That's right.
I'd tell them to work out more for football so you can make the pro. Get off your lazy butt and go out and run some extra laps and lift a little harder. I'd probably also tell them to stay in biology and go to med school. I don't know that I would tell them to do this.
Why is that?
The likelihood, the probability, you know, there's so many uncertainties, you know. It's a wonderful life. I love what I do, but I miss a lot of time with my kid. I miss a lot of family time. I miss a lot of things. And it's not that I would discourage him from that. I just think that there were things I did in my younger life that, you know, would have set me up more solidly for this. But if I had gone to med school, I probably wouldn't be an opera singer. So, yeah, there would be some changes I'd make, but I'd tell them don't be afraid to follow your dreams. Tell them that whatever it is you want to do, you have it in you to do it. But I definitely tell them to work out more so you can make the pros.
So my show is called The Art of Excellence. I'm still learning what excellence means to me. What's your definition of it?
I don't think excellence is a destination. I think it's a habit. If you give your best at everything that you do, the product will be excellence. The standard is excellence. The habit is excellence. The monotony is excellence. Everything that you do. So it isn't a destination. It's just the result of constantly doing the same thing doing things at a high level. I don't go out and try to be great. I go out and try to do what I always do. I try to be great in rehearsals. Try to be great in coachings. I try to be great when I'm practicing. So when I go out, it's great. It's just what I do. It's a habit.
I like it. We'll end on that note. Morris, this has been an incredible journey for me, just having the opportunity to talk to you about your life and what you've done. And of course, I know you're going back to high school.
Yeah, man.
It's not a surprise where you ended up, but it's certainly a pleasure to hear. And thank you for doing this with me.
I appreciate the opportunity, Glenn. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. You can subscribe to the show at iTunes, Stitcher, and theartofexcellence.com. I've got one small favor to ask. If you like the show, please take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes. I would really appreciate that. I'll see you next time.